Welcome, everyone. On behalf of the National Catholic Educational Association, thank you for joining us for this professional development opportunity. I am Christy Blewett, and I'm honored and excited to be NCEA's facilitator for today's webinar, Intent to Participate, Preparing for Success. Before we dive in, just a few housekeeping items to note. First, this session is being recorded and will soon be available on ncea.org through your membership portal for future reference. Next, we welcome your thoughts today. Please submit your questions and comments in the Q&A box. Our presenter and I will actively monitor the Q&A box and do our best to respond at the end of today's session. Finally, stay tuned. Once our presenter has concluded, a link to the online survey, along with instructions on how to obtain a certificate of completion for this webinar, will be shared. Now, let's meet our speaker for today. The one, the only Sister Dale McDonald, NCEA's Vice President of Public Policy, is a dedicated advocate for Catholic education and a leader in public policy. A member of the Sisters of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, she has served as an elementary and secondary school teacher and administrator. Before joining NCEA, she directed the Catholic School Leadership Program at Boston College's Graduate School of Education. Sister Dale has contributed extensively to education policy on a national level for decades, serving on boards of trustees for educational and social service organizations, publishing extensively in academic journals and books, and participating in committees convened by the White House, the U.S. Department of Education, and the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops. She has also testified before congressional committees on key education issues. She holds a PhD in Educational Administration from Boston College, a Master's in Educational Administration from Pace University, a Master's in American History from Fordham University, and a Bachelor in Elementary Education from Fordham University. Welcome, Dr. Sisters Dale McDonald. It's exciting to be able to learn from you today. But first, let's start, as we do with all things, with a prayer. Please join me. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Loving and provident God, we come before you with hearts full of gratitude for the mission of Catholic education and the opportunity to serve our students, teachers, and communities. As we prepare to engage in meaningful consultation with the public officials, we ask for your wisdom and guidance. Grant us clarity of mind and strength of purpose as we navigate the complexities of federal programs, ensuring that our schools receive the support needed to provide an excellent and faith-filled education. Please help us to advocate with confidence, patience, and integrity so that every student and educator in our Catholic schools may benefit from the resources available to them. Bless our diocesan leaders, school principals, and all who work tirelessly to uphold the mission of Catholic education in our country. May their efforts be fruitful, their voices heard, and their schools strengthened in faith and excellence. We entrust this work to you, dear Lord, knowing that with your grace, we will find the path to success. We ask this through Christ our Lord. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Sister Dale, thank you for being with us today. The floor or the screen is yours.
Thank you, Christy. Thank all of you for joining us today. A little word before I start. What I will share with you today, February 18th, is what I know at this time about the regular programs our schools proceed to use to access federal program benefits for our students, teachers, and other educational personnel. I mean, I know we're all concerned about potential changes to the Department of Education and the programs that we depend upon and the way that things have always worked for us, at least since this latest reauthorization. For now, most of it's speculation, and I will proceed as we have been doing under current law, so that if and when things change significantly, we'll make sure to alert all of our schools. But today I'm going on what we have done in terms of following the ESEA programs and IDEA program as we know them. Excuse me. So what I plan to do today then is to look at the consultation processes and the most effective ways to use them to help our schools access these programs that do provide needed support and supplementary support that we could not provide on our own for our students, our teachers, and our families. Because under these titles, there are many ways to use the ESA and IDEA programs to support students with challenges that interfere with academic success, many different ways, not just Title I reading and Title I math, but various parts of the whole program that you can use to help children with learning differences, improve social relationships, emotional demands, behavior patterns, communication challenges, any number of things, as well as the various ways to support your school teachers and leaders and parents, because in some cases there are opportunities for parent participation. So what I hope to get across today is some of the more subtle things that you need to pay attention to when you're dealing with the district in the consultation process, because the whole program depends, your participation depends on how well the consultation process goes. So for today, these are the things that I want to talk about: the intent to participate, notification, and the ramifications around that. Then to make sure we're all on the same page with the federal programs that are to be discussed and how we determine whether or not the programs will be equitably distributed. And then the consultation process itself and how that's supposed to work, what you need to have with you for the process and before the process to make sure that it's more equitably available to all the schools in your diocese, or if you're a school principal, to your school, and sorry, and then we'll proceed from there. So the first thing I want to look at is the intent to participate. Now, that is a actual requirement in the law, that the LEA is responsible for all the schools in its district and for all of the students who would be in the district where they eligible for a program in the district like Title I, which we know deals, the only program that deals with the district where the child lives. So the process for beginning the consultation process is this intent to participate. Now, that may be a very formal letter sent to you and asking you to fill out this form, and on it, it would have the various programs and your intention to participate. And at that time, they may also ask you for the number of schools if you're a diocesan, or if you are the principal, looking for the actual number of students in the school that would be trying to participate in these programs. That's the formal process. The informally, they may just send you an email that says, you know, we're looking to begin a process. Do you want to participate in programs? It, as I say, it can be an email, it could be a text message, it could be a phone call. But in some way or other, they're supposed to, by law, find out from you, are you going to participate? If you have not heard from them by March, then I think you should initiate contact with the LEA. Again, the whole focus of these consultation processes is to have everything in place so that by September, when the public school programs begin, your programs begin as well. And so trying to backtrack over the course of the months, what does it take to get these programs in place, and when should we begin? And I would say, if you do not receive a response, contact them again. And if you do not receive a response within like a week or two of the second, then contact your state ombudsman and say, we're trying to initiate the process. The district hasn't done it, is not responding to us. Please contact them and begin the process. If you are not aware of who your state ombudsman is, you can find that on the State Education Department website. The U.S. Department Office of Education, Office of Non-Public Education, does try to keep a current list, but probably the more current thing would be the State Education Department to find out who you're supposed to contact. The thing to keep in mind is that the LEA can set a reasonable deadline for you to respond. If they want to know by, April 15th, and they let you know in March, that's a reasonable time frame. If they want to know tomorrow, that's not reasonable, and you reply something to the effect of, that is not enough time for us to get the information together, particularly if you are a diocesan person who's dealing with several or all schools in your diocese. The LEA, though, can set a reasonable time, I said, and that if the school does not answer, they don't have to keep pursuing you. They can then say, okay, we will move to the next step. We will have an initial meeting with private school officials. In some districts, the initial meeting may be with all of the representatives of the private schools in one large meeting in which they try to lay out some parameters. That's the beginning of consultation. That is not the consultation process. Or they may set up a time to meet with you individually. In any case, it has to have some reasonable parameters for that. It's, again, not that we're going to meet tomorrow, next week. They have to give you time to make sure your schedule will coincide with that. And again, if you do not respond, they don't have to pursue you. If you decide after the fact, or if a diocese opens a new school that does not begin until January, you're out of luck for that year, for that time frame. All right, so that you want to meet what they ask you to do when they ask you to do it, so there's no grounds for, well, they didn't cooperate. And so before we begin to look at that, I think it's important to keep in mind that the district does not always have all of the same information you do. Hopefully, you pay attention to the information that we provide. And so it's important before you even begin the first meeting to deal with the LEA and let them know, what the process is, what your rights and are, that you have read the regulations and the guidance, and how the thing is supposed to work. So, in some cases, like trying to prepare the district, to make sure that they're actually doing this, you want to know from them what federal programs are available. According to the law, our schools may participate in certain titles if the public school district participates in the title. So if you want to participate in the Title III program, say where you're dealing with English language learners, and the district decides not to accept any of those funds, that they don't have enough people to put a program together, then unfortunately you are out of luck. Or if they have decided to transfer some of the money from one program to another, they can't automatically dismiss your participation. They're supposed to speak with you about why they're doing it, what they want to do, and listen to your objections. So you need to know clear up front before you start getting the schools ready, what programs we're going to participate in. And then, what are the procedural requirements for each program? How do you operate this program? And then you want to know who is the contact person for each of these programs, because sometimes, depending again on the size of the district, one person may do it all, and then you have to have dealings with just one person. And you deal with the programs. IDEA is separate from the title programs. Title I is separate from 2, 3, 4, so that when you're working with them, who is the person that does each program, and you don't mix them all up, because you can't mix them all up. So what you also want to do is, again, to remind them before you even start, we're looking at participation on the equitable services part of this program, that you don't get the money, they don't give you funding, and they should be aware of that. But again, depending on when the person has come in to administer the public school program, they may just think it's another piece of public school program. You need to be clear that It is a different program for private schools. There are different regulations that you have to follow, and that you want to make sure there's no mix up so that in the end you're winding up being out of compliance with the program. So that's an important piece. So, and then also to remind them that perhaps there are some students in your schools that came from another district or vice versa. If a Title I student is out of district, the district where the child lives is responsible for the program and is responsible for contacting the school. So that if you have Title I people in your district, in your school that are out of district, that needs to be handled differently. Then the other thing that we need to look at and to be thinking about is that private school people don't always understand the program. So, we've done all kinds of workshops on this all over. But until some people are actually working with the program, they're not paying attention. Please inform, whoever is going to be participating in the programs or seeking to participate, that there are rules, regulations, and guidance. The last slide on this deck does have the information on where to get the guidance documents, particularly from the Department of Ed for Title I, and then for all of the others, separate guidance, Title VIII guidance for all of the others. So our teachers, our principals need to know how the program works. What are the regulations for the program so that they can prepare the appropriate material? So again, making sure that whoever is doing the negotiation has the material, but that also the schools understand, oh, this is what I can do. Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Again, for most of these title programs, unfortunately, a lot of our schools think Title I, and I don't have kids for Title I. There's so much more than Title I. And then obtain the data you need for consultation. The first consultation meeting, you should have some of the data that the schools are supposed to supply, or you as a school, so that when you are negotiating with them, or at least when they even start to talk to you, they know whether they have 300 kids or 1,500 kids and teachers that they're going to have to be able to make plans for. So that's some general information about thinking about how you get ready for consultation. The programs that are available, just as you're dealing with them, are all designed either under IDEA, which has separate programs, separate rules, but pretty much similar to the title programs. But the ESEA, Elementary and Secondary Education Program requirements, are found in, whether you call it ESEA or ESSA, Every Student Succeeds Act. Every Student Succeeds Act is the revision of the original ESEA. I think I've mentioned this in other presentations. Each time they renew it, they give it another name, but it is Every Student Succeeds Act revision, updates to ESEA title programs. So again, reminding our schools and ourselves of the child benefit theory, that the only way we can participate in these programs is if the focus is on the child. What is the child's needs, the student needs, and then how will these programs help the child succeed, or the teachers learn what they need to learn, do what they need to do to help the child succeed. And that the services are available, as I said several times over, students, teachers, and other educational personnel. We're all familiar with using just teachers, but in this ESEA final reauthorization, they has been expanded to include people like guidance counselors and other people who are not dealing just as teachers. The programs that we can participate in are the Title 1A, 2A, 3A, 4 and B, 4A and B, and I'll mention those in as we go along. The other thing to keep in mind is that Title I is based on the public school attendance area of the student. The child that's considered for Title I has to be dealt with by the LEA of the child's address. Where would they be assigned? Were they in public school? And then what areas are being served in that public school by that district? So that if the attendance area, that's what they mean by attendance area. What is the area being served? So that in District 4, they may be serving with Title I funds, kids in grades 4 through 8 and focusing on a particular thing. Then only the kids in our schools in grades 4 through 8 who have those needs are being served in that attendance area. All other programs, whether it's LEA, IDEA, or the other LEA programs, are simply based on where the student goes to school. So that as a school principal, you deal with just the district that your school is located in. And just keeping in mind that ESEA and IDEA, unless it's a very small district, have only have separate offices that deal with those programs. And within much larger districts, you are dealing with maybe several different people for different aspects of one program. So you've got to work to find that out before you even start. Again, the titles for private school inclusion are Title I, and those are basically your programs for at-risk students and need remediation. And then Part C of that same title is migratory children, those who move from area to area, and there are programs available. What I am not going to do today is go through how these programs work. We don't have time for that. I have done in the past webinars on each of these titles that are much more in-depth on what is available, what are the requirements, how you access them. So if you go to the NCEA website and you go through the resources, there are ways in which you can pull up all of those webinars. For Title II-A, preparing, training, or recruiting teachers, that's the official title. That's basically your professional development. And then Title III, language instructions, English language learners, and immigrant students. Again, there are webinars on that. The 21st century schools, where we have the 3 pieces, and Part A of Title IV, which is support and academic enrichment. And that's where you can get all kinds of assistance for schools and for students and teachers in the schools to deal with a wide range. That's all available in the guidance documents as well as on the webinars. The community learning centers, which are the after-school programs that are primarily public school based, but our students can attend. And then some help for high ability learners, basically gifted and talented. And then the Title VIII program lists all the particulars for the various programs that we can participate in. And that's the Title VIII guidance. That's a whole separate guidance. It's a Title I guidance. The Title VIII guidance goes through each of the programs and what's available and how it's supposed to work. And then there is individual guidance also for IDEA, the Students with Individuals with Disabilities Act. Again, that is handled by the district in which your school is located. So what we're looking for when we're doing this consultation process is equitable services. Again, we don't get any money, that we are only entitled to have our students served by the public school district, whether that can be using their personnel or third-party providers. Those are all things we'll talk about in a minute. And understanding the equitable services. So then generally speaking, the services are equitable if our students who are eligible to participate have the same opportunities to participate the way the public school districts are able to have their students participate. Again, similarly, but not the same. because we may have, and most often do have, different needs that need to be addressed. But by giving our students the same opportunity to have the programs discussed, and then looking at, well, how much money do we spend per pupil? That is to be equal, given, the requirements of the program, and that they be offered in the same time frame. Because the notion of, well, after we take care of all our kids, we'll deal with yours, is we cleared that up very, very well in this last reauthorization. So that we're looking at pretty much similar, but based on needs that are imperative to be met at the school where the student goes to school. So the funding requirements are, that we receive a proportional share. That's what I said. If we're 4% of the district, then 4% of the money goes to our schools. And regardless of whether they're in public or private school, that 4% should break out to the same per dollar amount for each of the students that are being served. And it's served from the total amount of money that's received. None of this will, after we get done figuring out how we're going to serve some of our schools, will serve you. And the LEA must tell you how they came to that. Well, this is what the district gave us. I mean, this is what the LEA received from the state. Again, I have a little quick graph there on the side. The feds send the money to the state sends the money to the district. And the district is supposed to deal with you in a timely enough manner that the funds that are set aside to serve your students are used in the year, used in the year in which they were allocated. Obligated means they're accounted for in that year. And then there's an interesting note in the law that says the SEA must provide notice to private school officials of the amount of funds allocated under each program in a timely manner. I have yet to find any SEA that has done that. Some of them, and it doesn't say, that's part of the problem with the law, it doesn't say how to do that. So the SEA may simply put it up on their website with all of the other documentation about how these programs work. But the LEA has to tell you, when you are negotiating for the programs, when you're consulting, what it is that they received, and then how they divided it up proportionally. So who participates in the consultation process? The private schools have the right under the law to designate who will participate in the programs. All right, so that the school may decide, well, we're one of these various ways here. Excuse me. Again, for our schools, it's important that we look at, is there a diocesan policy? Does your diocese have, for all of the schools or for some of the schools, a federal government's person, a federal benefits program, whatever they may call it? Years ago, most dioceses did, but as things tightened up financially, a lot of them have to no longer have those kinds of personnel. So the diocese may say, we will do all of the consultation for all of the programs, and then they have to talk with you about, if you're not the diocesan person, how that's going to work. Or they may say, well, we'll work like for one, we'll do like LA Unified, but then all of the other schools in the Archdiocese of Los Angeles may, be on their own, or may be grouped, again, follow diocesan policy. And then private school, whether it's the LEA, whether it's the diocesan office or the individual schools, they can designate someone to represent all or some of the schools. And I think that's an important piece to consider if you are a private school person who's dealing with everything for your school. There's a lot that's involved in all of these programs. And so if there are several schools in the LEA in which your school is located, maybe you want to deal among yourselves as principals about who will negotiate, so that one person gets more expertise in one program or maybe two of the programs, so that they're only dealing with a certain small piece of it at a time. So that you're able to do that under the law, and you simply have to have the person who's appointed, and again, you have to work within your district. Person who's appointed should inform the district that I have the permission of, and you may want to send a formal notification to the district. So-and-so will represent, and then these three schools, and have each of the principals sign off, something like that, depending on what they might want. But this is an important thing to consider, because once you start going through all that's supposed to happen in the consultation process, there's a lot that's here that you have to go through. And then this is just, I like to put this in. This is a chart I borrow from people at the Office of Non-Public Education at the Department of Ed, but timely and meaningful consultation must continue throughout the implementation and assessment of services, and shall occur before local education agencies make any decision that affects the opportunities for private schools, school students and teachers to participate. So this is something to keep in mind, and we have around the circle there all the various parts of what needs to take place. So it's important that you get across to the district that it's not a one-time deal when you're talking about consultation, and that of all, there are so many pieces that you need to have information about, so that you can prepare the request for services in ways that does not get shifted back and forth between you and the district. You want to know up front, and we'll go back to the slide about making, working with the district. What is it you need from them? What do they need to know from you before you even begin on how this is going to work and who they have to deal with? And if there's a problem, who's going to resolve it? So it's important, as I say, to establish productive working relationships, so that throughout the process, we're getting the best possible services to serve the kids who are in need of these services, or the teachers. Now, one of the big things that we were able to get into the actual law is that the purpose of consultation is to reach agreement about how student and teachers' needs will be served. That's what it says. How that gets interpreted, again, is wide open for conversation, but you need to keep going back to that if you start to get resistance from the district on things that, looking through the guidance and the regulations, this is a legitimate request. They have to give me some respect for what it is we're talking about, and why they have made a decision that they make. Again, unfortunately, the law is still the law, and the district has the final say. But there are safeguards in that, so that you can go higher if they really have not done what they're supposed to do, or they simply disregard what you're saying without giving it any due consideration. So this part is tricky, in that people have different opinions about what it actually means to reach agreement. But again, your first line of defense, for want of a better term, is the state ombudsman when you start to get into areas where they're not paying attention to what their responsibilities are. So I pulled out, there are items there. Those 5 items are basically, what the consultation process is about. What are the children's needs, and how are they going to be served? Who will be served? Because unfortunately, in all of the programs, there's not enough money to do what needs to be done to meet all of the needs. So we have to do some prioritization to determine the services that will be provided. Actually, what is it that the district is going to provide, whether it's done in their teachers, whether they provide a third-party provider. Again, that's an important piece too that they have to discuss, but I'll mention that later. Identify the personnel needs and who will be served. So that's basically teachers and other educational personnel. And then the third party, the providers, who will provide these services. The options are district personnel, the third-party providers, those companies, those outside companies or persons who can provide the services, or in some cases, your own teachers, but it has to be outside the scope of the school year, the school time, school year. So if you're going to use Title I for a summer program rather than pullouts during the day, your teachers then can go to work for be hired by the district, work for the district to provide those services. And then the other thing you have to talk about is funds for each of the programs. So again, these are, and I'm not going to go through and read all of this because you can get a copy of this when the slides are made available, or all of this is very clearly spelled out in all of the guidance documents. The law, this comes from the law, then it gets moved into regulations, and then it's also in the guidance documents that are provided. And the last, I'll just say a little bit about the last piece on bullet on this slide. And then, how and when decisions about services will be made. So that's an important piece. It's okay, we're in maybe the fourth consultation meeting. Or when are these services? When are you going to tell us, yes, this is from our conversation, what we agreed on. This is what we will do. This is what we will propose to start as a date and so on. Again, we're trying to keep in mind the starting date and back up after from that. So it's important that basically pretty much by the time the school year closes, what's going to happen for any of the title programs come September and how they will get started and who will be delivering the services. The other pieces here, again, more of the same. I can't spend a lot of time today on the pooling of services where within a district, the funds can be pooled so that the Title II money for the 4 schools in your district, the 4 Catholic schools in your district, or 2 Catholic schools and 2 independent schools, their funds could be put together so that you have a couple of days of professional development, seminars, workshops with professional people being paid by the district, combining the funds of those 4 schools, and you all participate together. And then to make sure that next to the last piece where how do you settle grievances? The thing you have to remind them of is there is an ombudsman and that there is a process for filing a formal complaint, so that after you go through or don't go through the required consultation topics, and they're just, here's what you're going to get, no, we're not paying attention to this, or whatever, you have a right to cite the various pieces, and that's why I put all the separate pieces on these slides. You have a right to pull out the various pieces and say, the district did not do this. You're appealing this first to the state education agency, and then you appeal it on to the Department of Ed if it comes to that. The complaints have to be based on what the district was required to do and did not do. And that formal complaint could also accompany to the state education department the refusal to sign an affirmation of consultation. This isn't just what the district feels like doing. This is requirements that they have to meet. If they don't, at the end of the process, when you're asked to sign the yes, consultation has taken place, you check the box that says no appropriate consultation has not taken place. And then you document there what it is they didn't do and how that impacted the ability of your students or not, or to not benefit from what's available. So that's, that's something we need to pay attention to. For very long time, we've been very compliant. We're nice people. We don't want to make a fuss. But that's not an option sometimes, because if they are not doing what they're supposed to be doing, and the money that's generated to serve our students through their parents' taxpayer payments, or actually your teachers' payments, your teachers pay taxes too. All of that, that is used for these title programs is available to our students and should be used. So we need to think about how we go through the consultation process and how we then typically sign the affirmation or we don't. Just to keep in mind, the things you need to have for consultation meetings, is that, definitely you need to know the number of schools that are going to participate if you are a diocesan person, or if you are a person who's doing the consultation for more than one school. You need to know, so number of students in the program. Specific data that individual programs will require, like, so do you need poverty counts? Do you need just enrollment? Do you need addresses, etc.? To know for each of those programs, and again, read the documents, the guidance documents, what is it that you should have handy so that they can, how are they going to talk about, well, you're going to get, X% of all of the money if you don't have the counts available so that they can do the actual percentage. And then what are the academic and professional development needs of students and teachers? And that has to be, there's two things to that, and has to be supported. You have to have data that show, that students are falling behind in a significant number of students, or an individual, depending on which program, is falling behind in certain ways, and that is at risk for failure. Again, we're trying to deal with all of these programs with making it possible for students to succeed. So you need, for the student pieces, you need certain data, which I'll do on the next slide. And then for looking at the various programs that are for Title II, or programs you want to access for Title II. What are the student needs? What does the teacher need to be able to do to address those needs? What help does the teacher need to have to be able to address the teacher's inability at this stage to do all that he or she could do? And then to know whether it's the student programs or the PD programs, they have to be assessed. In addition to, on the student side, the actual, reading test at the end, or math, or whatever we're looking at. Also, how effective was the program? And so that's part of and that's what you need to talk about up front. It's not that they come in May and say, oh, we're going to do this, this, and this, because we have to account for this program. You should know up front how they are going to ask you to account for the program. Because again, we have to be accountable. I mean, this is public money that's supporting what our kids do, and we need to be accountable as well. So for looking at the student programs, and this is particularly for Title I, but some of it can come into some of the ways in which we might use Title IV. The requirement is to use multiple objective, age-appropriate, educationally related criteria. It's a mouthful, but it's not just what's the reading score, what's the math score. Well, we think kids should be at below 25 percentile to be needy. Well, maybe in that public school district they do. But if they're going to succeed in our district where our kids go to school, where their needs have to be met, maybe they need to be at 62 percentile. So that for them to say, well, they're reading at 40%. No, we're not taking that. That's again, something you need to have a conversation about and be very forceful about. The program is supposed to meet the needs of the student where the student is. And if our criteria are different from theirs, it's our criteria that gets met, not theirs. And then, so some of the things that you can use are the standardized test scores, classroom assessments, a portfolio of work, teacher input. What does the teacher notice about how the student learns or doesn't learn? What's the teacher recommendations? And then sometimes parent input. What happens at home when the student is trying to deal with homework assignments and so on. And then since everybody can't be served, you try to do a rank order checklist to hand to the district, because you have to tell the district, who the students are in order in which you think their needs are the greatest, and then how they will be served. So what, you're looking for. So what's the academic profile? What skills do they lack or need to acquire? What are the dispositions? How do they approach their learning? And then comment. So you should, in referring to students, whether you're doing it formally on pieces of paper submitted or in conversations, these are the kinds of things you need to look at. For the professional development, this is where basically you need to identify what is the student need so that the teacher then needs can be upgraded to meet with the student needs. And then an actual proposal for professional development. I mean, that can be, this is just quick stuff here, but they want to know that. And then they may ask you also, they don't always, how is this going to be assessed? So if we send you for these reading courses, what should we expect? And that's where you talk about maybe a 0.3 percentile of whatever and so on. I can't go into all that right now, but it can be very simple, but the question is, if there are, that you need to know upfront from the district, what do they want PD requests to look like? They can't have you do extraordinary amounts of work. I mean, it's basically, this is the need, this is how we're going to address it, and this is what it might cost. And they should not be, giving you a runaround on they want this paper and that paper. Simple, clean, this is it, this is what we're entitled to, and so we want to move on. So I want to leave time for some questions if we have them, comments. This is basically just a quick look at when should things be happening. So that come the end of the school year, we know we're ready to begin next June. I mean, sorry, in June or May or June when you end, that we're ready to begin next September. So that was kind of a quick run through. I can't see up here is Christy, do we have some questions?
Sister, we have 0 questions right now, which means you nailed it. You addressed everything. There is nothing left unanswered. Please,
Okay, well,
we can still see them if you'd like to add any questions, and Sister would be happy to address them. Go ahead, Sister.
no, I'm sure people may want to, oh, I forgot to do my last slide, sorry. Let me screen share this. Well, then maybe I can't. This has my contact information. There's information on my phone number is there and my email. I'm happy to take phone calls. I'm happy to try to work with you through email. The website under the public policy section has information, and then we have the guidance documents there that you can access. So please make use of what's available. And again, I'm happy to work with you in any kinds of information sessions. So, important thing is these programs are available right now, they're available. And if they morph into something else, we'll try to work, with the agencies that are now may get control of these programs like Health and Human Services or Agriculture or whatever that, have maybe different ways of operating. That's my job, is to learn all that and then to share it with you. So, for now, I think, that might be sufficient.
Thank you, sister. We didn't get any questions, but we got just a note of appreciation. Thank you, Anna Bragg. Sending sister a heartfelt prayer of thanksgiving for your dedicated advocacy for our schools.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you to all of you who are trying your best to do what needs to be done so that these programs can be made available to your students where they are, and your teachers and faculty. So I'm happy to help you do that. Anything else, Christy? So
God bless you, sister. Thank you so much for doing this important work for us and preparing us for equitable services in our Catholic schools, so we can get the support and resources we need. Thank you for your advocacy.
and this will all be available to you in a few days. You'll get a notice. So once you go through it again, feel free to contact me. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, sister. Please know on behalf of your NCEA team, thank you for your tireless work and your unparalleled example of virtue that you share with us every day. It's a privilege to learn here from you, sister. Thank you. Some more notes of appreciation in the chat there for us. To our online attendees, thank you for being here and for your thoughtful engagement and gratitude. And CEA values your input as we work to continuously improve our content and services for members. So please take a moment to complete the short survey that will be put in the chat shortly. By the way, if you would like a certificate of attendance for today's webinar, please include your name and your email at the end of the survey. Certificates are sent automatically, so be sure to check your spam folder if you don't receive it in a few minutes. As you move forward in this process, please know that NCEA is here to support you every step of the way, as Sister Dale so generously offered her services. Let us continue working together to strengthen Catholic education and serve our students and educators with excellence. On behalf of NCEA, thank you for the opportunity to serve you today. We will continue to pray for you. Goodbye and God bless.
Thank you.